She hijacked my wedding with her pregnancy announcement, so I got the last word. It was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. After months of planning, budgeting, and surviving the stress of organizing a wedding, the day had finally come. I stood under twinkling fairy lights in a garden filled with people I loved, holding hands with the man I chose to spend my life with. Everything was perfect. That is, until my sister-in-law Jenna clinked her glass for attention just after our first dance. Jenna had always been the center of attention. Growing up, even my now husband Ethan would admit that she had a flair for dramatics. She was beautiful, loud, and charming. The kind of person who could walk into any room and immediately turn every head. I tried not to take it personally, even when she wore a dress suspiciously similar to mine. But when she stood up at our reception, I felt my stomach twist. I have a very special announcement. Jenna beamed, resting her hand on her stomach dramatically. I saw Ethan's jaw clench beside me. "I'm pregnant," she declared. The room exploded in gasps and cheers. Glasses clinked, and people rushed to hug her. I just stood there. My wedding day, the one day that was supposed to be about Ethan and me, had just been hijacked by a baby announcement. I glanced around the room, hoping anyone would redirect the attention back to us. But no. My own maid of honor squealed as she hugged Jenna, completely abandoning her duties. My mother-in-law cried tears of joy, muttering something about becoming a grandmother. I felt invisible. Ethan leaned in and whispered, "We'll talk about this later," but I wasn't sure I wanted to talk about anything. As the night wore on, Jenna's announcement became the focal point of every conversation. Guests toasted to her baby. People asked her about baby names, and no one even touched the wedding cake I'd spent weeks choosing. I sat at the head table, smiling politely, pretending everything was fine, while inside I was crushed. My dream day was unraveling, and no one seemed to notice, except the photographer, who quietly kept his lens on me. Back in our honeymoon suite later that night, I collapsed onto the bed in my gown, still half pinned up with bobby pins and glitter. Ethan sat beside me, silent. I finally broke the tension. "Did you know she was going to do that?" I asked, barely above a whisper. He shook his head slowly. "I knew she was pregnant, but I didn't think she'd pull a stunt like that, especially not tonight. That stung." He knew and didn't tell me. "She stole our moment," I said, voice shaking. "And now all anyone will remember is Jenna's baby, not our wedding." Ethan took my hand, but I pulled it away. I wasn't ready to forgive. Not yet. Not when the most important day of our lives had turned into Jenna's personal baby shower. What's worse, she never once apologized. She just smiled, soaking in the spotlight, as if it was hers to take. The next few days were unbearable. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages from friends and family, congratulating Jenna, many completely forgetting to mention the wedding. Our wedding photos came back, and half of them had Jenna in the background, glowing and cradling her belly. I should have been glowing. I should have been the center. But instead, I was just ... overshadowed, and I couldn't let it go. I decided I needed to say something, not just for me, but for the principle of it. So I invited Jenna to brunch. She arrived wearing a flowy white dress again with sunglasses and a smug look. I didn't waste time. "Why did you think it was okay to announce your pregnancy at my wedding?" I asked directly. Jenna blinked innocently. "I thought it'd be a joyful surprise. Everyone was already so happy I didn't think it'd hurt." Hurt? I laughed bitterly. "You turned our one day into your personal celebration. No one was talking about our vows, or our first dance, or even our marriage. It was all about you." Jenna scoffed. "You're being dramatic." "I just shared good news." I stared at her, realizing she didn't feel even a hint of remorse. To her, I was overreacting. But to me, she had crossed the line I could never forget. The conversation ended with tension thick in the air. Jenna paid for a coffee like nothing happened and walked away, leaving me sitting there fuming. I felt dismissed, like my feelings didn't matter. And worse, Ethan still didn't want to get involved. She's pregnant. Maybe her hormones made her impulsive. He tried to justify. But I wasn't buying it. This wasn't impulsive, it was planned. Strategic, even. I started noticing a pattern. Jenna had always had a knack for redirecting attention to herself. At my bridal shower, she wore a white dress. At our engagement dinner, she arrived late and announced she'd landed a new job, drawing all the attention away. I brushed it off back then, thinking I was overthinking. But this, the wedding stunt, that was the final straw. I wasn't imagining anything anymore. I decided to speak to Ethan's mother, hoping for support. She had always seemed reasonable, the type to understand boundaries, but instead of sympathy, I was met with, "You know how Jenna is." She didn't mean harm. I was stunned, so that was it. Everyone was just going to excuse her behavior because that's how she is. I realized I was alone in this fight. No one else would hold her accountable. Instead of staying angry, I redirected my energy. I started planning a post-wedding celebration just for our close friends, no family, no distractions, a dinner party at our new place, filled with the joy we were robbed of. Ethan supported the idea. "It'll give us the moment we deserve," he said, but part of me still ached. I shouldn't have to create another moment. The first one should be Bani na. The dinner party turned out beautiful. We laughed, shared stories, danced in our living room under fairy lights. Our friends toasted to us. It felt healing, and for the first time since the wedding, I saw Ethan smile without tension in his eyes. But guess who showed up uninvited? Jenna, Belly Moore pronounced now, carrying a baby gift. "I brought something for your future," she said smugly. I stood frozen in the doorway as Jenna handed me a wrapped box. I didn't even open it. "This isn't the time," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. She looked around, clearly expecting an audience. When she realized no one was reacting, she forced a laugh. "Oh, come on, it's just a gift. We're family." But her smirk told a different story. She wasn't here to celebrate us. She was here to reclaim attention. Ethan stepped in. "Finally, Jenna, this is not appropriate. You weren't invited," he said firmly. I could see the shock in her eyes, maybe for the first time. Someone was actually setting a boundary. "Fine," she said coldly, leaving the box behind and walking out without another word. Silence followed, heavy and uncertain. But I felt something shift. Finally, Ethan saw what I had seen all along. We opened the box after the guests left. Inside was a baby onesie with "best cousin ever" printed on it, along with a note, "Looking forward to our babies growing up together." I closed the lid. It was never about family. It was a constant competition in her mind. I looked at Ethan and asked, "Do you finally understand?" He nodded, his expression unreadable. "Yeah, I do, now." That night, we made a pact. No more letting Jenna cross the line. We wouldn't be cruel, but we would be firm. We would protect our peace, our milestones, and our relationship. Ethan even decided to speak to his parents, explaining how her behavior affected us. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. And for once, I felt like we were a team, not just me standing alone in the storm. Months passed. Jenna gave birth and, predictably, tried to make it a public spectacle, tagging us in every post, even photoshopping a picture of her baby next to a stock image of a wedding. Ethan blocked her on social media. I remained civil, but distant. When our anniversary came, we celebrated privately. No posts, no parties, just us. We had learned our lesson. Some moments are sacred and worth protecting. Jenna didn't stop trying. She sent long texts, passive-aggressive messages about family drifting apart and how I were excluding her on purpose. But I didn't engage. I had spent too long trying to please everyone, especially those who took pleasure in making me small. I had a husband who finally saw the truth, and that was all I needed to hold my ground. At a family BBQ, Jenna showed up again with her baby, uninvited. She walked in like nothing ever happened. I stayed composed, but Ethan quietly spoke with his mom. A few minutes later, his mom asked Jenna to leave. "This isn't your event, Jenna. Please respect that." For the first time, someone else saw what I saw. I didn't feel crazy anymore. I felt heard, validated. After that day, Jenna kept her distance. Whether out of embarrassment or realization, I didn't know, and I didn't care. Life became quieter. I focused on our relationship, my career, and slowly started to enjoy the idea of our future without anxiety about sabotage. The wedding drama had scarred me, but it also taught me boundaries I should have set years ago. 1 year later, we renewed our vows privately on a mountain cliff. No guests, no audience, no drama, just me, Ethan, and a photographer. I wore the same dress, he wore the same suit, but it felt different. Stronger, we had weathered emotional storms and come out better, not bitter. Sometimes pain doesn't ruin you. Sometimes it forges a better version of you. Jenna eventually reached out again with a half-hearted apology. Something about not meaning to hurt me and being excited. I didn't respond. Not because I hated her, but because peace meant more than a forced reunion. I forgave her in silence, but I also moved on in silence. Some people are chapters, not the whole story, and I was finally writing mine without her pen in my hand. Months went by, and I didn't think about Jenna as much. The bitterness faded, replaced by gratitude for the lessons she unwillingly taught me. I started speaking to other women online who'd faced similar betrayals at weddings or family events. It shocked me how common it was, how often women were expected to just smile through sabotage for the sake of family. Not anymore. Not me. I shared my story anonymously once on a forum, and the response was overwhelming. Hundreds of women said it helped them set boundaries, cancel invites, or stand up for themselves. That made every tear I cried on my wedding night feel like it had a purpose. Pain, when shared and understood, becomes power. I didn't just survive what Jenna did. I used it to help others thrive. Now, every time I see our wedding photos, I don't see her ruining it. I see us reclaiming it. I see strength where there was once silence. I see love where there was once conflict. Our story didn't end at the reception. It began there, the real story, the one where I learned my worth, where Ethan proved his love, and where we chose ourselves over family chaos. If there's one thing I could say to any bride reading this, protect your moment. It doesn't make you selfish. It makes you aware of your value. And if someone tries to steal your light, it means you were shining brightly to begin with. Don't let their shadow stay longer than the moment it arrived. Reclaim your space, your peace, and your story. And to Jenna, wherever she is, I hope she finds happiness, the kind that doesn't need to come at someone else's expense. Because I did. And I earned every bit of it. Not despite what she did, but because I finally chose myself in the aftermath. That was the real beginning of my marriage. Not the vows, not the rings, but the decision to never let someone steal my voice again.